Ron, can we start housekeeping?
Thank you for participating in today's meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. If translation is provided, click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you're in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby or complete a blue speaker card as available. If you need assistance, please find a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making a public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-2432. That's 909-396-2432. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the South Coast Air Quality Management District Hybrid Legislative Committee. Is Friday, April 11th, 2025. I'd like Maria Corlejo to please take the roll, Maria.
Good morning. Mayor Lockdawson?
Here.
Supervisor Hagman? Here. Councilmember Olmos?
Here.
Supervisor Perez? Councilmember Rahman? Absent. Councilmember Caccioti?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Maria. Let's go on to item number 1. It's an update on our South Coast AQMD sponsored state legislation. No motions are required on this. There's 3 bills we're going to look at. Lisa Tanaka, our Deputy Executive Officer, LPAM. Lisa, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Today, I'll give you an update on our 3 sponsor bills. The first bill, AB 1338, authored by Assemblymember Solace. Just as a reminder, this is a cleanup bill for AB 2851 from last year regarding metal shredding facilities. Before the committee hearing last week, the author chose to amend this bill by removing the provision related to maintaining Air District discretion and implementing fence line monitoring provisions. And this amendment was necessary to secure enough votes for the bill to get out of committee. However, the author remains committed to advancing the bill and plans to work with his colleagues and stakeholders to reintroduce that flexibility to implement fence line monitoring or other air monitoring when the opportunity arises. This bill passed out of committee on April 8th unanimously, and that was the Assembly Environmental Safety and Toxics Material Committee, and it's been referred to appropriations. The next bill, AB 907 by Assemblymember Chen. This bill would provide CARB board members representing air districts the same compensation as the other board members. It passed out of Assembly Natural Resources on the consent calendar on April 7th, and it has been referred to Assembly Appropriations. And we're working with our consultant, David Quintana, on scheduling meetings with appropriations consultants on this and 1338. Let's see. An additional point on this bill is that Assemblymember Solace has signed on as co-author, and that makes it a truly bipartisan bill. The last bill, AB 1106 by Assemblymember Michelle Rodriguez and principal co-author Senator Ben Allen, would update the existing CARB Air Incident Response Program and expand that program to local air districts by creating air incident response centers. This bill has now been scheduled for Assembly Natural Resources to be heard on April 30th. And we are currently meeting with all of the Assembly Natural Resources Committee members. We met with the committee staff and are working on support. And with that, that concludes my update and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Committee members, council member, mayor, supervisors, any questions for staff? See none? Thank you. Great presentation. And oh, yes.
I just want to acknowledge Supervisor Perez is on.
Oh, welcome, Supervisor. Supervisor, did you have any questions on any of these items? 3? Thank you, Manny. Are Is there any public comment on these? This is item number 1 on our agenda, update on South Coast AQMD sponsored state legislation. I see a hand raised. Harvey, you've got 3 minutes. Go ahead, please, and welcome, Harvey. Harvey, you're muted.
Good morning. Am I being heard?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'm Harvey Yetter. I'm speaking for myself and Public Solar Power Coalition, etc. On the third item, co-sponsored by Senator Allen, which is our senator from the west side, Santa Monica. I'm concerned about this stuff with the CO2, and that it also includes methane, CO2 equivalent and stuff. And we addressed this in August 12th, answering testimony on the 16 plan in detail. That instead of just 420 with CO2 equivalent, 10 years ago we were already at 780 with equivalent. So I want to know about that and the details of, and also he was involved in passing this $10 billion climate thing, and 300 million of that the governor's trying to take away, and they're arguing that it has to be climate related. So we're concerned about that, and we'll bring it up in other things in public comment, but that has to be used for climate, and it has to be used in this thing against the Trump administration. There's 50 million now, and for fires, half of that, and half of it for other stuff. And on the other stuff, they've got to pick up where special prosecutor left off out of justice, and the 250 witnesses, 55 through grand jury, slam dunk case, and go after Trump. And there was a March 19th of last year, Griffin, a commissioner in New Mexico, was slammed by their Supreme Court, arrested, had paid a fine for insurrection, taken out of office, first time in 150 years. And that countered the Supreme Court decision on the 4th, which is the day before Super Tuesday, where violence was threatened by Trump, and that the state judiciary committee has to take this and take the lead on it now. And it opposed what Newsom said, including on his recent broadcast to Bannon and Klein and stuff, and this garbage, and it was opposed by Lieutenant Governor and other folks. We want to know the interactions of that and what lessons the press to get this, and that $300 million should go towards justice and going after Trump.
Thank you, Harvey. That concludes public comment. I see no other hands raised, no people in the auditorium here. So we'll move on. Item number 2 on our agenda, recommend position on state bills. There's several bills there. And we'll start, there are motions required on this. So we'll start with item number 1, AB 605, Versucci and Denise Peralta, Public Affairs Manager, LPAM. Denise, go ahead, please.
Yes. Good morning, Chair and committee members. AB 605, authored by Assemblymember Muratsuchi, would create a pilot program for cargo handling equipment to be operated for their entire useful life, regardless of state regulation. The pilot program requires the cargo handling equipment to be purchased by December 31, 2027, and to meet EU standards. This would likely result in more emissions. The EU standards are focused on greenhouse gas emissions, not criteria pollutants. While there may be co-benefits, it is not always the case depending on the technology and fuel. This bill would also affect CARB's ability to regulate this mobile source category by exempting cargo handling equipment in this pilot program from future CARB regulations. If CARB is prevented from realizing emission reductions from cargo handling equipment, South Coast could be responsible for a larger share of emission reductions. The bill was amended yesterday to start the useful life of equipment at the date of delivery, but this would not change staff's recommendation to oppose this bill. Staff recommends an opposed position, and this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Committee members, any questions for Ms. Peralta? I see no hands raised here or online. Is there, well, we'll go through all the bills and we'll take public comment. Staff, would you recommend voting on each bill individually or wait till we go through all the bills? Or committee members, do you have any preference? Okay, do them all at once. Okay, Kurt, we'll do that if that's okay with everyone. Mayor, is that okay with you, or what are your thoughts? Council member? Okay, we'll go through them all and then come back. So let's go to the next item, AB 914 Garcia. Philip Crabb, our Senior Public Affairs Manager, LPAMs. Philip, go ahead, please.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. AB 914 by Assemblymember Garcia would enable CARB to adopt and enforce indirect source rules. If CARB elects to exercise that authority, it must establish fees on facilities and mobile sources to cover reasonable costs. It would also require CARB to establish a statewide reporting program to quantify emissions and annually collect related information from the indirect sources. AB 914 for a given toxic air contaminant or airborne toxic control measure would require CARB to adopt and enforce regulations applicable to indirect sources. Additionally, the bill would authorize CARB to assess and collect reasonable fees on emitters of toxic air contaminants. AB 914's allowance of statewide indirect source rules could impact local control. The bill would require local air districts to implement and enforce the airborne toxic control measures on non-vehicular sources within 120 days of state action. However, this timeline is too short, given that indirect source rules are complicated. In addition, it does not appear that the bill would allow CARB to implement a mitigation fee and an ISR, which is a key feature in South Coast AQMD rules. This new fee authority would also extend beyond indirect source rules, which could overlap with local air district authority and duties and result in permitted facilities having to pay duplicate fees to both CARB and local air districts. Some of the concerns relating to the bill could be addressed through possible amendments that add provisions that would grandfather in and preserve air districts' authority, especially as it relates to existing and ongoing ISR rulemaking and related fees in the respective regions. Also, removing the toxic air contaminants provision from the bill. The bill sponsor, Earth Justice, has reached out to South Coast and other local air districts for comments on AB 914. Therefore, staff is recommending a watch position to engage in discussions with the bill sponsor and local air districts to determine if there is a positive path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Any questions for staff on this item? Supervisor,
I have questions, but I don't know if I should wait for our staff to respond or should I wait for our lobbyists to respond? Because it's more in general, not specifically. Because I'm watching this stuff pretty closely, you know, for my SCAG CAD as well as other bills. They're all over the place. They got some want to make things a lot more restrictive, and they got a bunch of bills going. There's a lot more just cut it loose and try to be more moderate. The governor's flopping back and forth. I'm just wondering who's reading the crystal ball on that, trying to see what direction we think we're going or where we should be at South Coast AQMD. Should we keep like we'll just hold in place type of position? Should we be advancing on some of our things and pushing this, or should we just like let the chaos succeed? Because you see what's going on in the federal government, cut all the regs, you know, all the standards, and what we got legislators going, let's push for more. I just don't think it goes anywhere with the governor. So I'm wondering when to pick and choose our battles here. And I'll leave it to staff, I'll leave it to lobbyists, but it's a crazy year to say the least. And I've seen a lot of crazy years.
That's an excellent point, and it has made for an extremely challenging both state and federal legislative session. Our primary goal is to protect South Coast AQMD's authority and our ability to implement our mission. So where we find opportunities, we will definitely pursue them, and where we need to protect and defend, we are there as well. So it is trying to be fluid and take opportunities when we can.
And again, this is my future questions to that one maybe reported, but I get that, but we're basing our, and use my military terms, our attack plans basis on the intel we had from last 10 years. The world's changing. Whether or not we have those same standards or not, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, you know, it just makes me want to think, what's our contingency plans for multiple different directions? You know, I understand they haven't changed the Clean Air Act, which is our basic authority right now, but it's not like it's not being talked about. It's not like it's some parts of that may be modified. And so that's what I'm saying, do we still go for the aggression, or do we want to, a good example is supports ISR. I don't want to bring this up, but we've been kind of going like this for a long time with what do you give, what can we get, where can we go, versus okay, we go together, we go back to the federal government and say there needs to be some modifications. This is how far we could do. We could do a container fee. We could do electric infrastructure here. We need this kind of authority to do this or that. You know, do we be proactive in that regard and go ask? This is probably the 2 years you have a chance to maybe modify some things on the federal level? Or do we stick with our own plan and just wait for the 2 years to go away and we go back to whatever normal is? I guess it's a bigger version.
So I think the response to that is that when I say opportunities, I'll give an example. On the Senate side in Congress, Chair Shelley Moore Capito of the Environment and Public Works Committee is looking at permitting reform. So we have been engaged in discussions on how that might look, and are there ways to address some of the issues that we have here in the South Coast region with air permits. So that's sort of like one example. So I would say that we are at the table having these discussions. We are always bipartisan. And so whatever there's an opportunity to improve and help us implement in what we do, then we're seeking that authority and abilities.
I see a hand raised by Supervisor Perez. Supervisor.
I think I have to agree with my colleague. It seems like it's, and more recently, I think in the last couple of years, and when I first even started on AQMD, it does seem like folks are just coming at us, legislation's coming at us, legislators from, and it's not necessarily the business community, but just from different directions, right? And it is difficult. And I appreciate the point that we do have a purpose and a mission, and that is to protect AQMD. And I think we need to, and obviously the air quality concerns in our counties. But to what degree should we now begin to take a stance on some of these issues? I'm almost feeling like, unless it's our bill, or we know for a fact there is an opportunity that can help support, whether it be resources or capacity building or technology, clear things up a little bit more for us when it comes to language. I'm not sure we should be taking any type of stance anymore. I think we should be at the table, that is for sure, to advance our efforts, and as well so that no one imposes on our work. But to the degree that we now begin to take these opposition or support recommendations, I'm almost feeling like we just hang tight unless for a fact we know it's going to be helpful or not. It seems like some of the stuff we don't even know. So that's kind of like just me talking out loud here and just thinking about all this stuff as well.
Thank you, Supervisor. Let's move on to SB 318 Becker, and that's by Philip Crabb again. Philip?
Yes, thank you. So SB 318 seeks to make numerous regulatory changes relating to CARBs and local air districts authority. Specifically, this bill would also provide for CARB ISR authority and fees similar to AB 914 Garcia, which I just presented on. It would also require CARB to establish a statewide reporting program to quantify emissions and collect information from indirect emission sources, including data from on-road and off-road mobile sources visiting those sources. For a given toxic air contaminant or airborne toxic control measure, it would authorize CARB to adopt regulations applicable to indirect sources. It would also authorize CARB to assess and collect reasonable fees on emitters of toxic air contaminants. And AB 914 would also establish definitions for BACT and BART and set forth new requirements for the determination of BACT. And finally, it would also require an air district to submit a proposed Title V permit to CARB for approval. One last thing, would also authorize CARB and any district to temporarily loan and assign staff members to each other via a memorandum of agreement. Overall, SB 318 introduces broad regulatory changes that undermine air district authority, create redundant regulations, and impose financial and administrative burdens. While the bill aims to enhance air quality oversight, its provisions could negatively impact the efficiency of existing air district programs. SB 318 contains these several problematic provisions which could impact South Coast AQMD and local air districts. And its bill's provisions regarding CARB rules and fees relating to toxic air contaminants are not necessary and could conflict with existing state and local rules. It also reduces air district authority with regard to having CARB have approval over air district Title V permits, and could negatively impact air district resources with regard to the loaning of staff to CARB. And finally, the bill complicates how backed and barked are established. The bill also added minor amendments yesterday, but that did not change the main substance of the bill. And it is opposed by CAPCOA, and staff recommends an opposed position on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Any questions for Philip, committee members? I see no hands raised at this time. Mayor, did you want to say something?
I'm just super confused about these bills. I'm sort of like Supervisor Hagman and Supervisor Perez. I don't understand where these are coming from and what is the impetus for them. So just curious.
Staff, did you want to comment on that? If we just use your discretion?
I would just add that we are, I'm sorry, Susan, if you want to comment.
So just to start there, I think just to respond to Supervisor Hagman and Supervisor Perez in regards to when staff takes a position, there's hundreds of bills that are out there. And we do try to, very, very wisely decide which positions that we want to take and then bring it up to the legislative committee to brief you on that. What's happening right now is that because we're working on the Port ISR, we're seeing a lot of bills that are talking about Port ISR in general, stripping away our authority. This bill 318 is, in terms of our authority, goes very deep into our authority. It goes into how we do our permitting. It is giving CARB a say in how Title V, the major sources, are permitted. They do not do any stationary source permitting. It is dictating how we establish best available retrofit control technologies, all those rules that we bring up to the board. We have a number of staff that work on those rules, the best available control technology determinations. They're kind of rewriting how all of that would be. And again, digging very deep into our authority. So these bills that we're bringing forward and the positions that we're bringing forward, we do have some very serious concerns about them. CAPCOA is on the same page. So all the other 35 air districts, air pollution control districts, are on the same page on 318. So just wanted to kind of set that forward. I tend to think we're reasonable in terms of, trying to work with different legislators in terms of providing comments and, where we can, kind of enhance a bill.
Through the chair, I agree. I mean, these are all defensive positions staffs are taking, and what's going on is the people we've been talking to and working with are going to legislature trying to block our play in negotiation. It just takes everything away from us to even have a negotiated type of solution. And that's more of my point was, I think we need to take defense positions on all these, but instead of preparing to go after, if we use the ports, for example, to say, we're going to force you, can we pick up where our colleague left off in those negotiations and say, is there something we could join hands with to go to the feds and ask for a resource and ask for a plan that we both agree upon? They're playing the fence in the state legislature right now and trying to block what we're doing. And so we need to be defensive on that, but at the same time, continue those conversations and try to come up with a consolidated. I mean, the rails and the ports are not just important to Southern California, but the United States. We'll see how much important it is if the tariffs keep going up and we have 200% against China. We may be having different kind of issues over here, but for long term, we need the kind of working solution for them to guide toward.
Supervisor
I'm
Perez?
sorry, can I?
Oh, sorry, sir. Mayor, go ahead.
And I wasn't finished, thanks. I've been, just to be clear, it wasn't confusion over staff's positions and it wasn't confusion over what was being brought forward. It was confusion over why these things are even being written and being brought forward by the legislature. And I agree with Supervisor Hagman. I think there's a play going on here, but I'm also confused by, some of the groups that are bringing these things forward. I could understand why some would want to talk to some of the legislature about undermining our authority, but confused by others, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So it's an odd confluence of events. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Mayor. Supervisor Perez? And you're on mute.
So I guess my first question is, who is they when we say they? Susan, and thank you for kind of getting us up to speed, because I think you explained it very well. But when you said they, who is they?
I can't remember what day I was.
Like the folks that are going to the state legislature, who are these folks?
We know that PMSA has been very active. I'm not sure, who the backers for the Becker bill are. Do we know for the Becker bill?
It was author sponsored, and they were recruiting a sponsor for an organization at the time. There's nothing official.
Who is recruiting the author?
Well, Senator Becker it was an author-sponsored bill, SB 318, and they were talking to certain environmental justice groups about possibly being sponsors of the bill.
Okay. So I'm sure Becker, if I said that correctly, is not an expert when it comes to this. So he's going to, you said environmental groups. Which environmental groups is he going to?
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't specified. We were told by staff that they were talking to certain groups, and the groups wanted them to go even more extreme on some of the things that they were suggesting. So, but they did not identify them.
Okay. And all these bills right now so far, who have they been? Like, I think we went over 3 or 4 of them already. Who are these environmental groups? And they're all environmental groups, correct?
Well, so for AB 914, that was sponsored by Earth Justice, and they had reached out. Oh, and 605.
AB 605 is sponsored by PMSA and also supported by ILWU Local 13.
Okay, wait a minute. PMSA, what is that? What is that?
Pacific Merchant Shipping Association.
Okay. And that was, whose bill was that again?
I apologize. AB 605, Muratsuchi.
Okay. And then the others have been mostly environmental groups?
Yes, AB 914 and SB 318. I think we're kind of looking at, there's some extremes on the industry side, or, kind of more pro-business, and then you got some extremes kind of on the EJ side. And that's kind of what we're dealing with, extreme bills on going different directions.
And these are coming forward to us because are they, and you mentioned something earlier, Susan, are they trying to strip, I guess, I don't want to say the word power, but strip, I guess, our efforts or ability, rather, to pass policy and give it to somebody else, meaning CARB? Well, who are they trying to take it from and give it to?
To CARB. For 318, that is going to CARB.
Is that just one bill, or is there another one?
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it is CARB. I think some of the environmental justice groups maybe think that they are trying to expand this type of authority. Since not all air districts have ISR or are implementing ISR, then they want to make sure that it's applied to the entire state. There'd been talk about maybe accommodating local authorities. So I don't know if their goals is to take it away from us per se, but it is ideally to expand.
Got it.
14, yeah. 318, as you can see, has multiple things going on, and that does take away air district authority or make us subject to CARB.
And how does CARB feel about all this? Are they taking any stance on any of these pieces of legislation?
So we do have regular meetings with CARB on legislation. AB 914, Garcia, they're just a straight CARB ISR bill. They are okay with that bill and wanting to make sure that local air district authority is not infringed upon. For SB 318, they're not happy with that bill. Obviously, it does a lot of things, so they're not looking to take our authority or take our staff.
And that 318, that's the, remind me once again?
That is the one by Becker that is requiring us to submit Title V permits and loan staff, and also does the CARB ISR, multiple things.
Okay. I guess one last question. Ultimately, is the relationship between AQMD and CARB, would you say, one that is cordial, one in which it's collaborative, or is it more like, I'm going to take what's yours and run with it? Is there a will to work with AQMD on an ongoing basis, especially when it comes to these pieces of legislation?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Wayne has a good relationship with Steve Cliff and Leanne Randolph.
Okay. Just trying to dig deeper here as to where the enviros are really trying to take this. Because sooner or later, we as AQMD, I think, although obviously we want to make sure that we take care of the public health of our constituents, we need to have some balance here. And what that looks like, I'm not exactly sure. It depends on the issue. And so it seems to me like if they don't get what they want from us, they go somewhere else and try to get it there. But maybe that's a reach from as far as it coming from me and my opinion, but sometimes it feels that way. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. We'll move on to the final bill under consideration, SB 712 Grove. And Denise Peralta again. Denise, go ahead.
Thank you. SB 712 by Senator Grove would fully exempt a collector vehicle from the smog check requirement, both biannually and at transfers, if the vehicle is 35 years or older. This bill proposes the removal of all checks to ensure a vehicle is in fact a collector vehicle and has not been modified in any way. It also establishes a rolling exemption where a vehicle model year 35 or older would be granted the full smog exemption with no safeguards to ensure the vehicle qualifies as a collector vehicle. This bill will increase emissions of criteria pollutants and toxic air contaminants, making it more difficult to attain federal air quality standards. Staff recommends an opposed position. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Questions for Denise on this bill? Kurt, you want to go first? Supervisor Hagman?
Thank you. Call this the Jay Leno bill.
Yes.
How many vehicles are we talking about? I mean, again, we could draw a line in the sand for everything, but do we have any clue what the universe is of this non-modified 35 years old? Every car show I've gone to, things have been pretty modified. So they're very rare that there's a few.
We don't have the exact number, but classic cars make up about 7% of smog checks in the state.
But we don't know if they're modified or unmodified at that point.
I'm going to give an example. Okay. According to CARB, data indicates, and I'm going to compare this to a 1982 passenger car. So CARB data indicates that a 1982 passenger car that passes smog check emits approximately 123 times the NOx emissions of a 2025 car. Assuming the 1982 car is driving just 3,000 miles per year, is the equivalent of a 2025 car being driven 369,000 miles in the same year. For daily drivers, which would be allowed under this bill, at 11,000 miles per year, That's the equivalent of 1,353,000 miles of a model year 2025 car.
Yeah, but no one drives that. If you have a, 1965 Mustang that you have kept the original condition, you drive it to and from the local show, or you park it almost like a museum piece. So they're not the daily commute driver. Maybe it's a modification, and I'd be open to my colleagues to say, hey, if it's driven less than 5,000 a year or something like that, we can, because you lose the value in a classic car once you start putting miles on it.
What does this bill try to do? Let's get down.
You can't get these classic cars smogged. It's impossible.
Well, I know, they're old school.
Yeah, they're old school, they can't be smogged, so therefore you can't register it, and therefore you can't take it to the local show. But my understanding from the author's intent is those like pristine museum pieces or, project cars that people spend, 15 years bringing it back to original condition, that now they could take it off and, to a local show and show it. It never came across as a commute car where you're gonna put 300,000 miles on or whatever. The equivalent, I understand it's there, but if you allow them at all, just like, we're not talking airplanes, but I know there's very few at my Chino Airport, very few original World War II airplanes left in the world, and there's a handful of working models, some that are one or two or three of the kind. Should we have some kind of exemption for that with restrictions? Like, it's not going to be a commuter car, very low miles that we could track, whatever, and then you can get the exemption. I'm just maybe opposed if modified, less modified.
I don't know,
restriction.
Kurt, I think it differently. I mean, old school rides are still being used not only to drive to a show. You got lowriders, for example, that are 1967 or Impalas, and they're being cruised on a Friday night a couple of hours and showing folks, being able to show them off. I don't have a problem with that because obviously that's part of maybe my culture. I'm not sure, but I also like muscle cars for that matter. And people are still trading them or purchasing them, fixing them up, and cruising them. Maybe they're not going from here all the way to from San Bernardino County, Riverside County, all the way to Sacramento, but they're driving them around town here and there on a Sunday, especially. So I'm just trying to understand right here, what is this bill trying to do? Because I'm not in support of any type of legislation that tries to stop the usage of a nice classic car or a vehicle, that's been worked on, and, people cherish those vehicles. I do.
So one of the issues too with this bill is that it is reducing some of the current restrictions on, like, you need to insure it as a collector car. It creates a bigger exemption for other folks to be able to utilize this exemption. And if we're talking about 35 years, we're talking about cars in up to 1990 years, and model year 1990. But the concern is that there's no one really tracking the miles. It's creating a bigger exemption that other folks can take advantage of. So it's not going to be just the folks driving the 1965 Mustang. It's going to be folks driving a 1989 Honda, whatever, and allowing less oversight and creating a bigger exemption that will allow folks to drive more miles. And since the cars are much dirtier as they're older, it's going to create that increase in emissions.
Well, I would support something like that. I mean, as long as all of a sudden we're not mandating that you got to get rid of your vehicle because you can't drive it no more, or I don't think that's good either. So, all right, I think I understand.
Can we just ask our staff to work with the author or try to get the attempt? Maybe it's an application process versus a broad exemption of anything 35 years old. You can apply for exemption, but you have to prove that you're using few miles. You have to show that's all original, that type of thing. And whatever that miles limit is, that makes sense if it's 5 or 7,500 a year, whatever, but they can actually apply. So those who really are working on that classic car connect direction that can't modify it to pass the smog. My son's truck's one of those ways. It's not a classic car by any means. I struggle every year to get that thing past the smog, and nothing's been changed on it. It's a big engine that we use 3 or 4 times a year to take the bigger items from Home Depot home or something. But if there's a process for that, with a higher fee, and so you can monitor whatever the case may be for those true car enthusiasts, that makes sense. But just to oppose it outright without getting a tent, maybe work with them a little bit more. I know Shannon, and I think if she gets something, she'll be happy with it.
Yeah, but are we saying to oppose this? I mean, this is,
Right now, the staff recommendation is to oppose.
oh,
So-
no way.
I think based on all the comments that we probably want to change the position to work with the author. I think we heard a lot of good comments. I think the concern was that they had brought in and removed the registration for the classic cars. And so, but we can, work with the author and try to incorporate some of the comments that we heard today.
Susan, if you can, I'm going to make some comments when we come to a vote on it in more detail, but I was just curious on the number. 7% of all the cars registered in California. How many millions of cars are registered in California? I know there's 38 plus million people. Do you have an idea from Bureau of Automotive Repair, DMV?
We'll probably have to get back to you on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that's important, because it's 7% of a small universe, but that's a huge universe. Okay, so we've got any more questions on this item? Then what we'll do is there's public comment on item number 2, all these 4 bills, and we'll start with Harvey Etter. Harvey, go ahead, please.
I think Harvey has how much time?
What we'll do is, okay, go ahead.
Oh, it's on the screen. 50 seconds.
Go ahead, Harvey. Harvey, you're muted. Harvey, you're still muted. We'll come back to you, Harvey. Next speaker is Jacqueline Moore with Pacific Merchant Shipping Association, PMSA. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jacqueline Moore from PMSA, and I wanted to comment on AB 605 by Marisucci bill. It's actually surprising to see an opposed position as it targets NOx, which is why it's called the Lower Emissions Equipment at Seaport bill. That's for a reason. It invokes the EU standards simply because CARB does not have one for CHE. The impetus for this was hydrogen ICE technologies, which is 99.6% cleaner for NOx than current Tier 4 standards. So really AQMD should be welcoming this technology with the zero carbon is just really the cherry on top. We see this is an interim solution. This is not to take away anyone's authority. It's to reduce emissions in the very near interim. It can be deployed immediately. So we would ask perhaps not take a vote at this time. We would love to be able to sit down with you, talk about our reasoning for this bill and the background and the emissions that can be secured in the very near term. So very happy to follow up with some other documentation, and we'll be reaching out to be able to sit down and have a real discussion in this. So very much looking forward to that. And thank you for the time to comment today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. And Sarah, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that, I appreciate Jacqueline's comment on that. We certainly support the hydrogen technology. The issue is the reference to the EU standards in general, and that might be overly broad and could result in an increase in NOx from this particular category of equipment.
Thank you, Sarah. Staff, Elisa, has PMSA reached out to us in this legislation? Try to work with us or negotiate, talk with us?
No, PMSA has not reached out to us about this bill.
Okay, thank you. Harvey, do you want to go ahead? You've got about 50 seconds. Harvey, go ahead, please. Harvey, you're still muted. Harvey, I'll give you one more chance. You're still muted, Harvey. You've got 50 seconds left. But we've got to move on. We've only got 15 minutes left. Okay, we'll move on. We'll go through each bill one at a time, take a vote. AB 605 Marisucci, that's the lower emissions equipment at seaports bill Denise spoke about. I'll entertain a motion and discussion or a vote. Yeah, Kurt, did you want to?
I was thinking for all the staff recommendations, with the one exception of modifying the older one. I mean, unless someone wants to pull one of them, I'll move staff recommendations with the modification on the last one.
Can we do that, Bay? Or what do you?
Yes.
I think,
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to vote one by one because I have differences of opinion on a few of these.
I do
Okay.
agree. Yeah, me too.
Okay, we'll do that one by one then. Try it. So AB 605 Marisucci, is there a motion? We've discussed it a little bit. Mayor, go ahead.
I would move to oppose unless amended, maybe with some of the comments that we heard, or maybe just adopt a watch position on this till we meet with PMSA. I'm not sure. I understand staff's concern about this, but if they haven't met with PMSA and there's something in there that could benefit us, perhaps we either do oppose unless amended or a watch. So I would make that motion.
I'll
I would second that.
Yeah.
I would
post-
second that as well.
That's a motion to oppose unless amended, correct?
Yes.
Moved by Mayor Locke Dawson. Who seconded that?
That was me.
Okay, a council member? Thank you, Brenda.
Yes.
There's a motion and a second to oppose unless amended. Let's take a roll call, please. Maria?
Mayor Locke Dawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Hagman,
Aye.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Supervisor Perez,
Yes,
Councilmember Rahman, absent. Councilmember Cacciodi,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. Next bill is AB 914 Garcia, air pollution, indirect sources, toxic air contaminants.
It's a watch position.
Philip, that's a watch position?
Correct.
So no action is needed unless we want to change it.
Do you want to take so we have to take a motion on it to support the watch position or not?
So moved
Ready?
to watch.
Do we, so, Ray, do we need to take
It's
a
a
motion?
no
on it?
action, it's to watch it.
You could go either way on this one, so.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved by Mayor Dawson, seconded by Supervisor Hagman. Roll call, please.
Mayor Locke Dawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Hagman,
Aye.
Supervisor Perez,
aye,
Councilmember Rahman, absent. Councilmember Cacciodi,
Yes,
motion passes.
great. Next is SB 318 Becker, air pollution stationary sources, backed indirect sources.
I'll move the opposed position.
did you say Kurt opposed?
Yes.
I second that.
Moved by Supervisor Hagman, second by Supervisor Perez, opposed position. Roll call, please, Maria.
Mayor Locke Dawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Hagman,
Hagman, aye.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Supervisor Perez,
Aye,
Councilmember Rahman, absent. Councilmember Cacciodi,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. Final bill, SB 712 Grove, that's a smog check. The Leno bill.
I guess,
all right,
right. I'll move that we have staff engage with the author to see if there's something they can work with. I don't know
okay.
Opposed, less amended, I guess.
Well, so what is this bill actually asking of us, or
So
what's
is
the
it asking
position
us
and what is this bill actually doing?
Partial smog check exemption, existing law for collector motor vehicles to full exemption from the smog check requirement, both biannually and at transfer for any vehicle 35 years or older. So I
Okay,
think staff's right,
Got
it's way broad, but I think there's something there, maybe that there's a proactive approach you could work to apply for that versus automatically get it.
okay, I got that. So what is the position of AQMD? What's the recommendation of AQMD on that?
If it pleases the committee, we could change it to a work with author,
No, but what is it now?
oppose.
Okay,
And Kurt was saying oppose unless amended or work with author, Kurt?
Yeah,
You know, I'm open to either one. I just want to make a quick comment. You know, I worked for 20 years for the Attorney General, and my main job was to prosecute professionals, white collar. And one of them was the representing Consumer Affairs, Bureau of Automotive Repair. So I prosecuted probably hundreds of smog check stations, smog check technicians, auto repair dealers. And that's really what got me involved in going to AQMD. I saw the harmful impacts of the vehicle emissions that bar would test in the bar test analyzer. So the NOx, the hydrocarbons on diesel vehicles, a particular matter that came out, that inspired me to run because so many vehicles were just, passing, and we prosecuted hundreds, if not thousands. We had 40 attorneys in the LA office, just dozens of cases we all had. They were cheating the system, and it was just the amount of pollution in the air. So what Denise had read about one car, and Kurt's right, I don't think they're going to travel, although many had a good point. Some do travel a lot, but some only go to the shows. I know I get behind some of those parades on the 4th of July where unfortunately I got to sit behind a classic car and carry, riding an electric lawnmower or something like that. But I got to inhale all that pollution for an hour, and it's horrendous. Where I'm walking down the street and one of those cars goes by, and it just kills your whole day because you're walking in that trail for the next 30 minutes and smelling that vehicle. And it's toxic materials. So I want to work with the author, but I, like you and Manny, have concerns that, people just want to go out once in a while and show off their cars. That's fine. But you can't be driving this 10 or 11,000, as Denise said, that's 1 million miles a year. If you compare it, and just prosecuting those and seeing what those test analyzers, what we're inhaling from each of those vehicles. So I would support that motion.
No,
Jerry.
I think there should be definitely a limitation on the number of miles driven each year and tracking and make it to a point where you're just not exempting your car, to get it because it's the easiest path. It should be a hard path. I think it's an exception.
So which track did you want to take, Kurt?
Path, do you want to oppose less amended or do you want to work with author? It doesn't matter to us. You're still going to be doing the same thing.
What would make it easier for you, Lisa, Philip?
Oppose less amended?
Yes, oppose unless amended would be.
I'll move that.
Thank you.
Motion by Hagman, is there a second?
I'll second.
Like you, Kurt.
Motion by Supervisor Hagman, and I think it was a photo finished by the mayor and the councilwoman.
Councilwoman can have it.
Right?
Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Supervisor Hagman,
Hagman, aye.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Supervisor Perez,
My position is a no, and the reason why it's a no is because I prefer the status quo, meaning I think that the older vehicles should be allowed. Even though I hear my colleague Caccioli, I'm not in that business, but ultimately, we're talking about old vehicles. We're talking about classics. And so I support the fact that one should be able to drive their classic anywhere they want. I'm a little bit old school here, and maybe because it's where I'm stemming from, but I'm going to say no.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rahman, absent. Councilmember Caccioli,
Yes,
motion passes 4-1.
thank you. We'll move on to discussion items.
Sorry, Chair,
Yes,
for AB 914 Garcia, I did not call on Councilmember Olmos. Can we retake the voting,
yes.
please?
And what was that measure? Air pollution, indirect source, toxic, and what was the,
Correct.
what was the
It's
motion?
a watch
was-
position.
It's a watch.
Which
but it was
you
by-
watch every bill in Sacramento. I don't know why we have to take a formal position to watch because it takes no side. But I'll leave it to our council.
Councilmember Olmos, did you want to vote? Do you want to take the entire or just her vote? Which we do, Bay?
Just hers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was a yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you for clearing that up. And we'll move to the discussion items. Number 3, update on federal legislative issues. We've got about 6 minutes, so everyone's got, Leo, if you're going first, you got 1 minute, everyone. Let's go.
Nothing going on here.
Chair and council member, just as in Sacramento, there was a lot going on in Washington. I'm going to just quickly give you a report this week. The House and Senate were able to pass identical budget resolutions, which means that they have unsuccessfully unlocked the budget reconciliation process. Over the next 60 days, you're going to see Trump's one big beautiful bill come together that will impact taxes, regulations, renewable energy and other matters, we'll have a much longer discussion and report at our next meeting. But in the interest of time, I'm going to yield.
Thank you, Leo. We'll go to Mark Kadish. Mark?
Hi, good morning. I'll try to also be very quick. We've been following the Congressional Review Act, which, as you know, there's some talk of overturning 3 of California's waivers using the CRA. The significance of the CRA, as you may recall, is that you can't, if used, you can't filibuster in the Senate. The main point of contention, however, is that the California waivers are not a so-called rule and therefore are not eligible to be used under the CRA. The GAO, General Government Accounting Office, has been asked for a legal opinion, as I mentioned last month, and they said that it would not qualify. However, they don't have any legal authority. They're just an advisory capacity. However, last week, the Senate parliamentarian ruled that they would not fit under the definition of a rule, and so could not therefore use the CRA. Nevertheless, the majority has introduced, as required by the CRA, resolutions of disapproval to overturn the 3 waivers. And now they have to decide whether to go forward. Once the Senate parliamentarian rules, you can vote to overturn the parliamentarian. It's rarely done. I think only twice with this parliamentarian. The Senate Majority Leader has already expressed concern about doing so. So we'll continue to monitor this closely and work with your staff. But as it stands, the Senate parliamentarian has said that they should not be able to use the Congressional Review Act to overturn the California waivers. So that's where it stands. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Gary Huisman. Gary?
Yeah, hi. Very briefly, I just wanted to update you all on the couple of sub-cabinet appointments. You know, we watch them very closely because we have to work with these guys in our work and everything. And so I just pointed some out in my written report. I just mentioned a couple of them here. Top lieutenants of Lee Zeldin at EPA, David Fotui, Deputy Administrator nominee, Aaron Zabo, Assistant Administrator for Air and Radiation, both key people in the EPA hierarchy that we would work with. And both are passed out of committee, 10-9 on a party line vote. They both cited their own health problems that they had, lung cancer and lung disease or something, to emphasize their interest in the effects of pollution on what goes on at EPA. And thirdly, I just want to quickly mention my friend Eric Euland has been named Deputy Director of Management at the Office of Management and Budget. He's a former staffer I worked with in the Senate years ago, and he worked in the Trump White House early on, and he's a good guy. He's someone we could work with if we get to the point of having to reach out to the OMB. So I'll just leave it there. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Gary. Committee members, any quick questions for our consultants in Washington?
No quick, but I think
if we can, sorry.
I think if we could schedule very much longer, I mean, in this package, there's some significant changes to us as a board and us as a region. There's, I'm a news addict, so I listen to everywhere I go for my boards. I listen. So it's changing daily. There's a lot to it. And I think we need I know their staff's really digging into a lot of the stuff, but it really affects us. And so if we could have a federal day and maybe a state day, we're not going to get it done in an hour probably, but I'm just making a suggestion that we get a further analysis of what's going on in DC.
Staff, maybe the next legislative committee maybe start a little earlier, 8:30 or something like that. Is Susan, is that possible?
Yep, definitely.
And then, what should we be doing to be, I guess, proactive with all these new people? There's a few that I actually know personally as well in the system. Do we go out and start talking about certain issues? What is our game plan with the new administration, I guess? And that has been clear to me. Right now, I get today, we're playing defense for the most part, but is there some things we should be working on offense for, deregulation processes, more resources for certain things, whatever the case may be. But we got to get on the same page and start talking to them.
Good suggestion. Is that okay for all committee members? Next meeting in May at 8:30 a.m.? Okay, so yes. All right, let's move on to update on, well, is there any public comment on item number 3? Nobody in the auditorium? Get a moment to raise your hands. This update on federal legislative issues. See no hands raised, we'll move to item number 4, update and discussion on state legislative issues. Ross Buckley. Ross, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Just want to provide a brief update that the California Legislature moved Assembly Bill 100 this week on an expedited timeframe. This is the early budget action items that they're doing. They're actually going back and amending the 2024 budget to implement these 2025 priorities. The largest piece of this was $2.8 billion to help cover Medi-Cal costs. That's general fund spending, but there are also additional priorities such as accelerating Prop 4, which was the climate bond funding, providing a temporary backfill for property taxes, and increasing funding for the Clean Cars for All program. While the legislature continues to craft their budget, we're just a month away from the May revise. I think the important thing is that this early action items just continues to show what strain the budget will be under this year. That completes my report.
Thanks, Ross. Paul Gonzalez. Paul?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Just wanted to provide a quick update on the upcoming legislative calendar. Yesterday was the start of spring recess for the legislature. They'll return on April 21st. And as Senate President Pro Tem McGuire said yesterday at the end of session, enjoy your short break in your districts, because when we get back, it's going to be a sprint. And here's why he said that. May 2nd is going to be the last day for fiscal bills to pass out of policy committees into the Appropriations Committee. May 9th is the last day for non-fiscal bills to pass policy committees and go to the floor. May 16th being the last day for policy committees to meet. May 23rd is the last day for appropriations committees to send bills to the floor. And June 2nd through June 6th will be floor session only, with June 6th being the deadline to pass bills out of the other house. And of course, let's not forget June 15th is the constitutional deadline to pass a budget. So once the legislature returns from spring break, we'll have less than 7 weeks to pass all bills out of their house of origin, or they become 2-year bills. So it is going to be a sprint. We'll continue to keep you apprised, and that completes my report.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Quintana, you're next. Go ahead, David.
Yes, thank you. Very briefly, the only thing I have to add to my report was that on Tuesday, President Trump signed an executive order directing his attorney general to ID state programs that drive up energy costs and purport to address climate changes. And he singled out California's cap and trade program. Newsom responded in saying he won't be derailed. He won't let California's progress be derailed by glorified press release masquerading as an executive order. And that's where it lays right now. We're just waiting to see who moves next.
Thank you, Mr. Quintana. Questions for the consultants?
Comment.
Yes, go ahead, Kurt.
What could go wrong with abbreviated legislation after the spring break and all these fights? But good luck, legislative staff.
Okay, I see no questions. Is there any public comment on item number 4, update on state legislative issues? None in the auditorium. Give you a moment to raise your hand. Nobody's raised their hand, so we'll move on to other matters. Any other business committee members or staff? Seeing none, we'll move to public comment period. It's your chance to comment items that come under the jurisdiction of the legislative committee under our authority. Is there any public comment on this item? Since we're pressed for time, I'll give anybody that wants to speak 1 minute. Nobody in the auditorium. Online, we'll give you another few seconds if you want to raise your hand. No one's raised their hand. So our final item is item number 7, next meeting, May 9th. It says 9 a.m., but staff can probably come back to us 8:30 a.m. as Supervisor Hagman has recommended for a more robust discussion. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting and have a great weekend. Thanks, everyone, and thank our staff, legislative staff, information technology staff for doing a great job all the time. Thank you. Bye-bye.